Reverend Barber, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. You're probably honestly one of the top people that I and others want to hear from in the country right now. In his first speech as president-elect, Joe Biden talked about healing for our nation. He ran on that as a big part of his campaign. And I would just like to hear from you what you think actively that looks like right now. What do people need to do?
Well, thank you so much for having me. And, in the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival, we contacted over 2.3 million poor and low wealth infrequent voters. And a lot of them turned out after we contacted them. And why did they turn out is because they weren't voting for normal. They were voting for their lives. So when we say healing, we have to ask, well, what's sick, right? What's sick? Now, we can't say division is the ultimate sickness because the country is always going to be divided. It's a two-party country. We've had that for years. But what we know is what's sick. We're in the middle of a pandemic. We got 140 million plus people poor and low wealth. So that's what needs to be healed. So we have to address poverty. We know that we have 100 million people or more without health insurance in the middle of a pandemic, without health insurance or underinsured. That's what's sick. So we have to expand healthcare. We know that people are facing or working, essential workers, without sick leave, without guaranteed sick leave and unemployment. They're afraid of evictions. These are the things that are sick. And interestingly enough, finally, 62 million people in this country want a minimum wage rate. 60% of people. 60% of people want to expand healthcare. That's where the country is. So I say that the healing is in the mandate that comes from the mourning, MOURNING. Where people are mourning, that's the mandate of the policies we need. The pain ought to dictate the policies. And that's when you heal people. You heal the soul of the nation by healing the body of the people.
I agree with you that on some level we're always going to be a divided country for the reasons that you mentioned. And former President Obama, when he was congratulating Biden, he said on every level the elections show that there is some deep, even bitter division in this country between supporters of the two candidates, supporters of the two parties. So to that question, what do you think Biden and other leaders can do right now to try to bridge that gap?
I think, first of all, don't live in the mythology that there's some place behind us where it wasn't bitter. Don't put all of this on Trump. Trump didn't create all of this. And we're getting ready to find out when he's no longer in the White House that he didn't create all of this. He exploited what was already created. And if we create the mythology that what we see now is one person, then we never get at the issue. People are hurting. I've been all up in Appalachia, all places at the Poor People's Campaign that we were told we couldn't go. Kentucky, Appalachia, places they claim a Trump country. I find that a lot of people aren't anybody's country. They just feel abandoned. They feel like nobody cares about them. And they really, it's amazing how many of them just wish the country would care. If Biden and Harris put an agenda, or even on McConnell's desk, that addresses and begins to deal with poverty and lack of health care and living wages, and put it on his desk like it should be. Don't deal with it in the back room, in the front room. Then lobby for it and put faces on it and show people that would be made better. Show that they are Republican and Democrat, they are black and they're white and they're brown, they're Asian and they're indigenous. Then give the people a chance to move and to push. We can really change some policies, but we can't do it if we already start out saying that's quote unquote socialism. It is not socialism. That we have a mandate. The mandate comes from the Constitution and Declaration of Independence. Pursuit of happiness is the mandate. Promoting general welfare is the mandate. Equal protection under the law is the mandate. Just do what we said is in writing. That's the way you heal the nation. Don't come up with something else. Do what we said we would do in writing. Establish justice.
Now, Reverend, as a final question at this moment of transition, if we were to offer up a prayer for our democracy right now, what would that sound like?
For this moment, my prayer is simply the prayer of Jesus, and that is the prayer that we recognize every nation will ultimately be judged by how it treats the least of these, the poor, the hurting, the hungry, the homeless, the immigrant, the sick. and those who are on the margins of society. 62 million people that vote or are eligible to vote are poor and low wealth. That the poor and low wealth people are 30% of the electorate and 43 and growing percent of this country. You cannot leave nearly 50 million, 50% of a country unaddressed, untalked about, and their issues undealt with. But if you deal with those issues, then we can become truly one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. But it's going to come through poor and low wealth people and lifting the rejected of this country. My prayer is that we don't stay stuck in these puny arguments, but we talk about what's right and what's wrong, and we talk about loving people and caring more about people than we care about corporations. We don't treat corporations like people and people like things. Instead, we see all of us as creatures and creations of God, and we lift from the bottom. We lift from the bottom. My prayer is that we lift from the bottom, and in that way, we transform the nation.
Reverend, thank you so much for your time. Your work is inspiring, and we all thank you for it.
Thank you so much, and God bless you.